Hey guys, we want to thank our sponsors Amigos. Amigos are based in Portsmouth, deliver the best Mexican food in town.
So they're open 12 till 10. Hit this link here or call them up and use the code NJB and get 20% off. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Hello guys, welcome to podcast number 7, NJB. My name is Terry, I'm here with Ash.
Hi everyone, we're here with a special guest today, Shakiba. She's a sports psychologist, former elite amateur boxer. She was on SAS Who Dares Wins and loads of other things. She's a very interesting guest. So welcome. How are you, Shak?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good. It's really good to be here. It's good to be back in Southsea. Spent a large part of my uni life here. So
When was the last time you were here?
when was the last time I was here? I think I was actually teaching or something at the uni, and that was like, oh God, back in January I think, which isn't that far ago, like long ago, but
I guess it's all changed now, isn't it, with the online teaching and stuff, so you don't have to come in as much now.
yeah, but I miss it. I miss the seafront. I miss like just Southsea.
It's Portsmouth, isn't it? It's better than, I don't want to say better than Southampton, but it's,
No
you get
comment.
nicer views. Nicer views.
So Shak, tell us from when you've grown up, obviously in Iran, people
Yeah.
give everyone a bit of an outline about your life.
Yeah, sure. God, yeah, where do we start? So I was born and partly raised in Tehran, which is in Iran. I went to school there up until the age of 9, and due to some political issues with a certain family member, we had to basically up and leave for safety reasons, and that's when we kind of came to England, and we were seeking asylum here for safety reasons, and yeah, kind of settled down on the south coast. And from about the age of 10 up until now, really, it's just been living here. Kind of, I still think like there's still a part of me that's still maybe adapting to like so many different things here. I think from the weather to like some of the cultural differences to communication. I think like catchphrases that I still haven't, like I've never heard of. So I think there's still
Geezer.
yeah. I'm like yeah, like there's a lot of things. Yeah.
Oh, I love.
Yeah, I'm quite like, I think because of growing up in certain places, I think my lingo is quite like well developed. But
So
still,
what was it like when you first come here? Did you know any English?
no, I literally did not know any English. I think even like with speaking Farsi, I was still within that, you know, like at the age of 9, with any kid learning any language, you're kind of still within that elementary phase of like learning and speaking. So it was just like up and leaving all of a sudden to then go into this like new world that is the complete opposite to what you're used to, because in Iran, it's a dictatorship out there for women out there, especially like when I was growing up. It was really difficult in terms of like people are oppressed, but women are oppressed more so than men were out there. Still are oppressed, but like one of the other reasons my parents wanted to kind of up and leave at that time, given the kind of safety concerns, was also because they knew they had 2 girls on their hands, and I think from a young age they saw that. So I have a twin sister, and they knew that like with both of us, we were outspoken even at a really young age and always questioned things, like especially at school. And sometimes that wasn't welcomed, like that kind of questioning of, why am I doing this? Why am I wearing this? Why are you telling me I need to learn this?
Whereas obviously here, when you question things, it's encouraged, especially
Yeah,
at
I think
university.
curiosity is a big thing here. And sometimes I think in oppressed nations, curiosity could be dangerous. And it shouldn't be. Like I love seeing curiosity in children, because I think that's how they learn, that's how they find out about the world. And I think for that to be kind of shunned on almost, it is concerning. And like I will forever be grateful for my parents for like making the decision they did. And I think there is this misconception about Iran that like, because I guess it's a place bang in the middle of the Middle East, that people assume there's war going on, and it's not. It's a very well developed country.
That was one thing I wanted to ask, because I've got a lot of friends from that part of the world who've moved here, and they speak always positive about how beautiful the country is.
Yeah.
How was the first, obviously 9 years that you can remember?
Yeah.
How was it over there? Did you find it quite safe?
Yeah.
Was it quite a good place to grow up in?
Yeah, it was. I think. nothing would ever take away like the beauty of Iran. Like it will forever be. It has always been a really beautiful country. It's like a country that, a really big country. You will find all 4 seasons of within one country. You would. I don't know if I'm
Snows
phrasing
there? Does it snow?
Yeah, there's
Is it really?
snows. Yeah, depending on what. Basically, if you go like up north or if you come down south, it's got different like seasonal weather. So if you want to have like more snow, you would travel to a certain part of the country. Even in the summer, it'd be colder in certain parts of the country. And then if you, for example, travel down south, it'd be a bit more hotter. So you had like almost all 4 seasons all year round within one country.
I thought it was just really hot there.
No,
That's
like.
what I'm on. That's the
I
conception.
think again,
isn't it?
it's
Yeah.
that misconception. I think the winters are really cold and really snowy. Like it has a really lovely ski resort in Iran, especially in Tehran where I grew up. And like I was so used to like the scenery of going out and seeing mountains in the background all the time. And I think that was one massive thing when I moved here. I was like, I really missed that backdrop of like mountains. Because imagine like, you know, every time you step out the door, there's always mountains in the background, and like that gets embedded in the back of your head.
And then you moved to Southampton, is that right?
Yeah, so moved. Yeah,
So
moved
the
down
view
to
was a bit
Southampton.
different.
Yeah, very different. Yeah, the
Council
weather.
estates.
Yeah, just not everywhere.
Not everywhere, no. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's it was nice. Like I think it was just a massive shock, and I think also the weather. Like I will never ever get used to the cold.
Yeah, it's tragic. That's the whole. That's why I left for 3 years. It's I still can't adapt to it.
Yeah, having said that, I think it has a cleaner air. I think there's far less pollution here because, like, of course, I lived in the capital, so there was a lot more travel on cars, and like that was far more predominant than it is in a far smaller country in a smaller city. But I think that also brings far less pollution, which is really nice if you want to go out for a run or a cycle or just for a walk.
Especially around this sort of way, south
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
It's
like
in the morning, it's nice and clear.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, it's just like clear air. Like sometimes, like when it used to get really polluted in Iran, you couldn't see those beautiful mountains. So it's just like everything has its, you know, positives and negatives. But I think the element of Iran was that we were living a relatively comfortable life, family, friends, you know, and then it's just like you have to up and go because of external reasons that are completely out of your hands.
But that's quite interesting. You say external reasons. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, what were the external reasons why you had to just up and leave and come to the UK?
Yeah, so there was like so when the revolution happened in Iran.
What revolution is that? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's fine. So it was the Iranian Revolution of when the Islamic State came in and basically took over from what was a monarchy, and there was a massive revolution of a change in governance, basically, and people essentially voted in the Islamic State with the promise of economically making the country far richer than what it was, and I think greed played a part of that as well. Of course, with the monarchy, it had its issues. With any monarchy, that they have their issues as well. But they were promised a better economy, and that wasn't the fact. I think a lot of propaganda was involved, a lot of fake promises, and what happened was that the governments turned into a dictatorship, and people had no choice in what was happening, and so everything was forced, from religion to certain practices, cultural practices. Everything became forced.
So your human rights were sort of taken away in some way.
Yeah, I think it was. Absolutely, and I think one of the biggest human rights violations was that if you spoke against the government, then you were penalised. And within if a family member had not necessarily spoken against the government, but was involved in the process of revolution, and they were cracking down on people who were involved in the revolution. And so there was danger around our family, and I guess my parents, you know, they were very young, had a young family, and I think the worst thing was if anyone got caught up in it, any of our family got caught up in it, then their kids would have got dragged into it, and I think...
And what were the consequences like? Because obviously here, you would never really see any of that. I'm guessing, like, the punishments would be, lifetime imprisonment or... Yeah,
I mean, so public, I mean, this is really quite grim, but public execution is a common practice out there. So that was reintroduced, execution was reintroduced. It depends, like, they can give you lifetime for, like, spreading propaganda or going against the government. But it was quite extreme. again, it goes back to human rights violations.
And why is that? That's in the name of, I take it it's the name in religion. It's in the name of, right? Or is that?
I would say it's rather in the name of governance. We see it in China, we see it in Russia, we see it at a certain point in history. We saw it in Cuba. You know, there was part of that dictatorship governance where if you speak up against the government, you'd be instantly penalised for it. And their way is, you know, not just imprisonment, but actually over time they'll torture you, they'll, you know, execute you. But also it doesn't just extend to that one person. Your whole family name becomes involved in it, which can be dangerous. Which is really sad when you think about it, because, you know, 2022 it shouldn't be happening, but of course it still does.
It still happens today in Iran and Iraq, yeah?
Yeah, in Iran, yeah, it happens with the current government. It happens in China. I've done a lot of work around like the government in China, in North Korea, you know, the prime dictatorships. And it goes beyond the concept of religion, where sometimes I feel like that in Iran they gave the religion a bad name because of everything they were doing was on the religion, and it's like actually no, in no religion is there a concept about you forcing something on someone, or 100%. You know, or there's nothing about violating human rights, and this is coming from someone who's I'm not religious, and I have my own beliefs, but at the same time I can acknowledge that, you know, there are certain religion, every religion will have its extreme side, and every religion will have its peaceful side, and any religion with an extreme side is horrific. And there's
especially if they're running the country, some of the people.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like actually that exactly what you said. That it's that extreme end of a certain religion, then gained governance in a country, and then now we're seeing the outcome of it, of how have they not only ruined the name of a religion, but actually they've ended up ruining lives of people. And it is, yeah, and we see it in so many different religions as well throughout history. But I don't think it's not right in any certain period of history, but the fact that we're still seeing it, you know, in 2022, I would have hoped, you know, by this point, like in our lifetime, peace and freedom was just a common practice around the world.
I remember you saying off air that you're so lucky to be in England for all the rights, but then why is that such a thing, to be lucky to have your human rights? Why is that not practiced around the world anyway?
Yeah, I think one thing here is that there is a certain element of freedom here, and I think, you know, the freedom to be able to step out of your house and to go for a cycle, or to walk your dog, or, you know, to hold hands with whoever you're with. Freedom
of speech as well.
Yeah, there's so many elements of freedom that I think is neglected. Of course, there are certain things and there's certain problems within governance, and we can't turn a blind eye to that. But I think when we really strip things down and we look at the concept of freedom, in so many countries, you know, around the world, you can just step out of your house and not worry about, you know, if something you're wearing is going to get you into prison, you know, or if you're holding hands with someone, that's not going to get you into prison, you know. And I think that concept of freedom as well, it's almost forgotten about and not appreciated.
And even like being a woman in Iran, you said the amount of difficulties you'd have.
It's an oppressive place to be for a woman, because opportunities are not presented to you like how they may be presented to like your male counterparts. And like again, I'm not saying this. I would never have the intention of like painting Iran as this horrible country. And I think I always make the point that it's a beautiful country with the most kindest, kind-hearted people that you ever find anywhere in the world. And I will forever be proud of being from Iran and cherish like everything from that culture. But at the same time, like with anything, I can't turn a blind eye to all the wrongdoings that are going on here and going on over there, or going on anywhere in the world. I think it'll be naive of anyone to turn a blind eye to the things that are going on right under our own noses. And I think, and I'm aware of that's happening in Iran, I'm aware of it happening here, but it's on different levels, you know. It's on different levels.
It's very easy to see problems outside, but you've got problems here as well, and it's very easy to ignore those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's always having, and I'm really big on this, like having that ability to be able to step out of your own biases and really view things from a holistic perspective, where you look at things from almost like a wide lens of being able to really critically think about everything. Even, you know, if you like something, still, like, I love my culture, but I'm still aware of things that are not right within a certain culture. And you know, even here, I've spent majority of my life here, but I can still step out of, you know, that biased perspective and be able to like point out things that I think require attention here, because they're not right as well. And you'll find that in any country you go, in any part of the world, because governance is involved. And I think, you know,
yeah, but also it can never be perfect as well.
Exactly,
that's the worst part.
Yeah.
There's always different types of people out there.
Yeah, and that's why I think, you know, it's important to be a critical thinker, because essentially you can just lead a more peaceful life, because you acknowledge the wrongdoings of people and the governance, but also at least the positives of something and things to be grateful for. I think that's important in life.
So what are you saying?
So I was going to say, how about in Iran at the moment in 2022? Is a regime? I don't know if you've been back. If you've been back recently,
I went
is
back.
Is it quite different now, or is it still the same from when you first?
Yeah.
Which was how old? So you said 9 years old. It's been what, 20 years since then, right?
Yeah.
Not giving away, but around about then.
Yeah.
Around about then.
So I went back in 2019. That was my last trip home, and things have changed, and it's nice to have seen things change. Like, I didn't necessarily have to have my headscarf on anymore, whereas back, like, if I was 16 even, and I went back and, you know, not worn my headscarf, I would have been penalised, and maybe like I might have had like a fine, but I didn't have to have my headscarf on. It was a little more laid back in terms of what women can wear, as long as you didn't have anything that was really skin tight or see through, or you didn't have any, like, you had to have some sort of like not really long clothing, but like, I'd be fine if I went out like this with my like coat on. It'd be fine, because you can't really tell if anything's really tight. But if I had like maybe like my sporting clothes on where it's natural tightly fit, and I wasn't wearing like maybe a coat, then someone would say something. But I mean, if you compare it back to like 20 years ago, that is a massive progression. But that progression has been as a result of people, not necessarily because of the governance. It is like Iranian people are just so extremely resilient in the face of adversity, like, and that's something that's been really, like, again, predominant, I think, and we've seen that through history with protesting and standing up to government.
From the Iranian people I know, strong, proud people.
Yeah, and I think, rightly so. I think we know, you know, what we've come from and what we've achieved, and I'm a massive believer of, you know, people power, and things have changed as a result of people, and unfortunately people losing their lives in protests. And I like to think there's going to be a governance overthrown as a result of people. I can only hope. But yeah, things have changed, and it was good to see things have changed, but not quick enough. I think women are still getting, you know, penalised for a lot of things. They're still not being seen as equals, and that's, I think, where a lot of progression is needed, where women are equals to their male counterparts.
Yeah.
I'm sure inspirational people like you, if you get involved in that can slowly change the culture there. If you see the impact that that women have from that part of the world in the world now, that can certainly inspire other women to stand up and speak up.
Absolutely. I think, you know, when I went over there, I spent every day in the gym in the mornings. You know,
over in Iran?
So every morning I was going to the gym. My dad, bless him, he would like drive me to the gym. He would wait out in the car for 2 hours. Bless him. Or he would just go.
You deliberately went 2 hours. You could have done an hour, but you made him wait 2 hours.
I did, yeah. So I'd get my workout done, and I'd spend like an hour just chit chatting to everyone. But my dad was like, he's like, you know, my mum and my dad are like my number one supporters, and my dad's like, you know, I can sit here and comfortably say he is an advocate for women's rights, and I think to see that in a man of someone who, you know, who's
that generation.
Exactly, is such a progressive thinker to be able to do, to sit there and like be encouraging of that. And I'm super, super grateful for him and for my mum. And I think much of that comes from the fact that he's married to my mum. Like, my mum is like the most influential woman in my life is my mum, and like what I've learned and everything I owe to her and to my dad, of course. But yeah, he would drop me off, and then he'll go and find a coffee shop, bless him, and sit there for 2 hours. So I'll go do my workout.
That's why he didn't join you in the gym.
So he couldn't. So there were certain hours. Yeah. So there was like half in the mornings were for women, and the evenings for men, and you couldn't mix. But it was really insightful, like speaking to them, and like they inspired me. I know I spoke to so many of them. There was a really great power lifter there. Like she competed in the Asian
Games, isn't it?
Yeah. Done like placed really well, but she said some of her family members looked down on her for doing it. They said to her it was too manly, and she was like, "Oh, I hate the stereotype," you know.
But the thing is, you see athletes like that, because I see it in places like India.
Yeah.
Is that they're quite, the culture's quite, oh, women shouldn't do this, women shouldn't do that. But then slowly they're breaking down the barriers there as well.
Yeah.
And now they're known in the world for competing in boxing, for example.
Oh, absolutely. Like India's got an incredible team of women boxers. And I think we're seeing this, barriers breaking down. I mean, even saying that, we still see that kind of misogyny here. Mm-hmm. Even like if you go back, to my own boxing experience, some of the comments like I hear from judges,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think, I guess it was that assumption of like, oh, I wouldn't get that here, but absolutely I did, and it was a surprise. It was a wake up call. Like, no, that exists. Even, today in this culture, it still exists. In a country where women can do practically anything here. That kind of perception and barrier still exists.
The whole stigma, like,
exactly,
I can't watch women fight. You hear.
What is boxing is one of those sports that is very much still a dinosaur sport. Only because it's got dinosaurs in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you look at other sports like swimming, where money investment's going in, they've got young people coming in all the time.
Yeah.
Boxing's a sport that you do, shall we say, mainly voluntary.
Yeah.
And that's why people are in high positions are still with that mentality, because they're 70, 80 years old.
Yeah. And
so hopefully that'll slowly change as a new generation come in now.
Yeah, that's what I like to think. I think, there's some great work being done by some of the England coaches, women England coaches, and the fact that, there's so many women professional boxers now we see on TV. I think that's a massive move, and you've got to hand it to Eddie Hearn, who was, he initiated it essentially.
He initiated it, because you remember Frank Warren, when he said years back, he said, I will never promote women's sport. Yeah. And then obviously Nicola Adams came, and then his mentality sort of changed. But Eddie Hearn, from my recollection, was the first one, because Katie Taylor messaged him. Do you remember that? And then he said, we'll go pro and stuff. So she revolutionised the sport. You can't give
absolutely
what she did.
No, she did. Her, of course, with Nicola Adams in the 2012 Olympics, I think every woman within boxing have kind of left their own print. Even if you look back, like dates back to 20 years ago, there's plenty of like women boxers that should definitely deserve credit from 20 years ago.
Have you heard of Mary Kom?
Yeah, Mary Kom. So she's an Indian boxer.
She's like. At first she was hated upon because she's now she's like a mega star over there.
Yeah, and rightly so. After so many years of her dedicating literally her life to boxing, because I read like a documentary on her, because she had to go up. So her natural weight is 48.
She had to go up to face Nicola Adams.
At 51.
51, 52.
Yeah, she was saying like she just wasn't making 51. And I was like, when I started first boxing, and I was really struggling to hit like 50 kg, and I was like, because they had to move me up because there was barely anyone at 48, and I was like, oh my god, this is how she was feeling, like, but at a completely different level, like knowing that you're going to go up someone who's 3 kg can make a huge difference within that kind of weight difference, especially like a lot of 48 kg girls are like about 5'2" or below, like I'm referred to as like a big 48 kilogram girl, whereas like apparently I'm tall, even though my feet don't.
I was gonna look at that.
So funnily enough, I'm actually referred to as a tall 48 kg, which is funny.
I remember you boxed an army girl. I saw at one of the shows, and she was tiny compared to you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know how much like a couple of kilos, and then if you go to 51, girls are like towering me, and I'm like, but I had to, because at one of the box cups, Harringay box cup, I think the first year I'd done it, they were like, you have to go up to 51, there's no one in your weight category, and I was like, and then I literally ended up coming up against a much taller girl in the finals, but for Mary Kom to do it at like Olympic level, it's just like, you go
against people that are coming. The thing is, people are coming down from Lucy O'Connor. Do you remember Lucy?
Yes, yeah.
Lucy O'Connor. So she was boxing for GB.
Yeah.
She was 60 kilos. She used to box at. England boxing told her to get down to 51.
Yeah, that's
to box in the Olympics.
That's a bit too much, isn't it? Was she natural at 60?
I don't know how it works. Sorry, 57. She got told to get down to 51. So she used to say that for her in the morning she has to have eggs. I think eggs with water or something like that. So
my God.
Eggs. I don't know what she said, but I remember her telling me she had to do that. And I see a photo of her when she made the weight. She was really slim, and
it's not.
And it's not healthy.
No, not
so
at all,
imagine people. But I'm just saying, imagine people are coming down from 55 to meet that. And Mary Com's coming up
from 48.
And even yourself, you had to come up in weight to compete in those championships.
Yeah, and it made a huge difference. And again, hats off to Mary Com for doing it. But like going back to losing that kind of weight, the consequences sometimes can be irreversible. If it can affect your menstrual cycle, it can affect hair loss, it can affect performance, like so many things. Like to cut that much weight is just. I know it sometimes it's like a common practice, especially in like MMA. We do see it in boxing, of course, but I think MMA sometimes is a little bit more extreme.
They drop crazy amounts of weight, don't they? They can't even stand.
Yeah, and the fact that it's like an accepted thing to do, I know they've introduced some protocols, but I just think still, if you're barely standing on a scale, to think you're fighting, and especially it's a combative sport, like you're literally like in there and like protecting your life. But the day before you were barely standing on the scales. It takes
a lot out of you.
It does.
Just going back one stage, I'm quite intrigued. As obviously you come from Iraq when you were when you were 9 years old.
Yeah.
What difficulties did you face when you first come over? Obviously, the language would have been a difficulty. Did you go straight into school? But how was that experience in school for yourself?
Yeah, I think coming here, I think the biggest thing was like a culture shock. It's really understanding like what was going on here. And it was constantly like switching from one house in to another house in, and then like being in shared accommodation. But having said that, I mean, with my parents, they always went well above and beyond, trying to make somewhere really nice for us. Like there was always food on the table. Like I had, despite like moving away from family and friends, I had like an amazing childhood. And I wouldn't change anything about it. Like. Being brought up by two loving parents, like I loved it. I can't sit here and complain whatsoever. I loved it. It was always I've got a twin sister. It was always the four of us, and they just made life really, really like a really happy life for their two kids. So again, hats off to them. But I would say one of the biggest barriers was language. Like not being able to communicate was really hard, especially as like a 10-year-old. All you want to do is like make friends and play. And then
were we welcoming as a country? Was it quite smooth?
I would say I wouldn't say like I think there was
Southampton's quite multicultural as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Southampton. I think England as a country, or just the UK, it is a multicultural place. I think even back then 20 years ago, it was still a multicultural place. And then moving along to the south coast, I wouldn't say like it was like dominant by one race. Again, where I was growing up, it was really multicultural. We had people that were from the Iranian community, and that was really nice. But I would say like I would say I did experience like racism from quite a young age, from again that like 10-year-old mark. But again, I think it did teach me a lot of like lessons from really early on, which is again I wouldn't really change it. But yeah, that was another barrier, and I think not being able to speak to defend myself was really hard, because I could understand what they were saying to a certain extent, but it was just like I can't defend myself with what you're saying. And then it was like trying to tell a teacher that someone is like being racist or saying like stuff that's not nice. It was really hard. So I was like trying to draw pictures for them, and then they wouldn't get what I was trying to say, and I was like, oh, forget it. And then I'll end up in trouble because I would have retaliated physically to them. And whether it was chucking a chair at them or like hitting them, not like hitting them, but like getting them to go move out of my way.
Chucking a chair, it is hitting them, I would say.
Yeah, not necessarily chucking a chair at them, but maybe like
it's actually worse.
chucking an object at people. I remember like there was one incident where, and there's always with a group of boys that I was always getting in trouble with, and one of them was like constantly moving my chair, so I didn't chuck my chair at him. I pushed my chair towards him to make a point of like stop like messing with my chair, but then I got into trouble for it. And then I got annoyed because I was like, I can't explain the fact that he was moving my chair about constantly, and then he was also saying horrible stuff. And then for me, because I couldn't speak, I was like, I pushed my chair towards him to make a point of like, either have the chair or leave the chair alone. And then that was really frustrating. But actually, I ended up meeting like 2 of my really good friends I'm still friends with now through that kind of interaction, and them 2 like stepped in because they could see I was like struggling, but they stepped in, and even though I couldn't communicate with them, they stood up for me. And like, and even now we joke about it because I'm like, oh, how, like, because I see some of those guys still now. Yeah, it was a really interesting way of meeting my friends, and yeah, like I really cherish that kind of memory with them of them, yeah, standing up, and like just to know that someone was there for you at such a young age as well, but on behalf of you, like, yeah, standing up for you. And that was really cool. And I think after that, like maybe a year on after that, me and my sister really wanted to play football, and like we loved football. Like even in Iran, we played football.
Yeah, they love football. Yeah.
Yeah, loved football. Like played at a young age, and then when we came here, I was like, I want to play football still. Like I don't want to stop playing football. So, but none of the girls at like, because I joined in end of year 4, beginning of year 5, none of the girls were playing football because all the boys always hugged the pitch, and then me and my sister like just jumped in. And I was like, we want to play too. Like with broken English we had, and we were like, yeah, but we want to play football. And they were like, no girls allowed. And as soon as they said that, I was like, right, we need to go buy football. So we bought a football, brought it to school the next day, and they were like, you can't play on our pitch. And then our friend went and told one of the teachers and was like, they're not letting us play. They used to call us Shock and Shack. Shock and Shack want to play football, the guys won't let them. And then through that, like just a couple of us became like quite a big group of girls. We were like, we want to play football, like let us play football. And then so they dedicated half the pitch to us. Wow. And I remember they used to use the bins in the playground as like goalposts. And then I remember the teachers came out and moved the bins, and were like, the guys are having half the pitch, and the boys were like so annoyed with us. They were like, no, we never played football. Now they used to come along, and then now they're going to take away our pitch. And then yeah, it was really funny. And then like every now and then we used to like play boys against girls. And through that, I think in sporting interaction, I started like my English really progressed through sport.
Did it give you more confidence as well?
Oh, massively, yeah.
Sport does, doesn't it? Sport changes, like it just the definition of sport changes people's lives.
Yeah, massively. And I think where sport has always played like a huge role in my life. Like my mum used to be like a physical instructor in Iran for women, and I know watching her progress. My dad was always into his training, and so obviously we carried that same kind of ethos. And then coming here, like obviously we love football, and then yeah, I think sport is just a language on its own, and to be able to communicate through sport
brings everyone together.
Yeah, it did, and it really did. Like, just to to have like literally like I would say 90% of the girls in our year group were there playing football, and it was something they hadn't done before that, and that was really cool. Like to be been able to have like brought everyone together through the same passion of sport. Even though I didn't speak the same language as them at that time, and yeah, it was really rewarding even at that young age. Like I felt like I was finally like in a really good place to be able to make friends and communicate. And yeah, I think I massively cherish that. I think like sport has done a lot for me.
Yeah, so my dissertation was on young offenders and boxing, and it's about rehabilitation and how it can help. And when I did all the interviews at Gym 01 with James Conner and that, everyone had the same answers, Aaron as well, of how just the sport brings everyone together. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, what money you've got, what colour you are, male, female. Everyone was treated the same. Everyone had to put in the same amount of work. And if you showed that you turned up and worked hard, then you got your coach's attention. Yeah. And it was admirable, like lots of people would mix in there. It's like Terry put up a quote recently that's quite famous, saying like you've got ex-cons working with police officers.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. It's good. It brings everyone to, like the Olympics and stuff. Everyone's together. Everyone just loves. I think sport's brilliant in that sense.
I've played a lot of sports, and I think the one that does it the best is boxing.
Yeah, massively.
Boxing, as you said, is the only sport that I know and I've been involved in where you see ex-cons mixed with police officers. You see black mixing with white, Asians and over everything. That was one thing that brought me to close to boxing as well. You might know this is when I was in school, it was completely different. I went to a school that was predominantly a white school, so I was the only sort of Asian person in the school. So I experienced that sort of racism, that aspect of it. But when I came to boxing, it gives you that confidence and that belief where you can mix with other people.
Yeah.
And it introduces you to other characters as well.
Yeah, oh my God, it did.
So, about your boxing experience, did you have a similar experience with that yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I think...
when did you start boxing first of all as well? Quite intriguing.
Yeah, so I started in 2014, I think. So it was second year of uni. Maybe even probably end of 2013, going into beginning of 2014. And I started, I went to 2 kickboxing sessions, and I really enjoyed the intensity of it. I hadn't done any combat sports, but I didn't like getting kicked. I hate getting kicked. Yeah,
I can take punches, kicking.
Punching all day, but
I can't kick myself.
I hate kicking. I got told off one time in sparring for kicking someone too hard, and then I was like, well, I either kick or I don't. And then I was like, right, let me go. And I used to stay behind and watch the boxing, and Wayne used to coach the boxing
in Portsmouth.
Yeah, yeah.
Was this when you were at university?
Yeah. So do you remember Wayne?
Wayne Garner, he was my coach for a little bit.
Yeah.
So was this a Gym 01 where you started?
So this was a Gym 01. Yeah. Much of my boxing journey has been in Gym 01, and that gym has been amazing to me. So I spoke to Wayne, and Wayne was quite militant, and he was like, "You can come to one of our sessions, but just know we don't treat you any differently." And I was like, perfect. That is a perfect place for me, because I don't want to be treated any differently. And it was really serious, and I wanted something that was really serious. I didn't want to just turn up for just for that fun element. I wanted to go because I wanted to really push myself. And I think in that moment of time within university, I decided that I didn't want to drink. And it would have been good. I just thought, I think there is this stigma with students where all you do is drink and go out.
Yep.
And by the second year, I was like, I want to take a break from drinking, and I don't want to drink. I don't want to, go down a route where I'm losing focus. So I wanted to refocus, and I remember I was like, oh, I'll try boxing, and when I started doing it, they were in season. Wayne was like, nobody drinks, you don't eat crap, you look after yourself, because we want to put the best of you in that ring. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm up for this. And then I remember joining, and there were people there like, oh, we're not drinking, and I was like, oh, cool, okay, I haven't drunk for I think at that point it was 2 months, and I was like, this is cool, and we'd go out as a team, and we'd go and get food or whatever, but it wasn't constantly orientated around drinking. It was training and eating good food, and I really felt like I was I found my people. I felt like this was a really nice environment, and once I think you mix with the people in there, you just realise how much you have in common with so many different people, and our passion for boxing was always there, and the fact that we could meet up outside and go for runs together, and it was a real community. But also I think what made it different was that the element of the sport isn't a team sport, but the team spirit is really high. Yeah. And that's one thing that I think cherish from that sport, is that yes, when you go in the ring, it is just you and that opponent and no one else, but actually you have a whole army behind you, and that nothing takes away from that. Yeah, so it was just coming across this group of people that are like-minded, and I think actually with boxing there was a really interesting element of the people that you get to know, that they watch you through your lowest to your highest, from training really hard, having really hard sparring sessions, to then winning something, and you get such a high from it, to then maybe losing or having really, not a great training session. And I feel like they really see you at your lowest points, but also your highest points. And again, you don't get that in every sport. And that was another element of it. And it is a contact sport at the end of the day. I think it's a really raw sport.
Yeah, it requires discipline, and you have to dedicate yourself. And it was the same for me at uni. I had 2 routes. I could either go drinking with my group of friends and just have that lifestyle of a student, or when I went to Gym 01, it was you dedicate, you're not drinking, you're eating healthy, you're around people that are positive minded, that are trying to better themselves, and you're all trying to just be the better version of yourself every day. And that's saved my mental health as well. It does. And it was, I think, just meeting certain people within that group that I'm still friends with, especially I found that I met a lot of girls through that sport that I just naturally really got on with them, and we naturally had a lot in common. And that was really interesting for me, because it was just nice to meet girls, especially girls, because I think throughout my involvement in sports, I'd meet
quite a few guys, and you know, we get on and stuff. But I think it's different when I'm meeting another girl, because I'm like, well, obviously we're both the same gender, but also we have a lot of things in common. And I think that's a really special connection to have with another woman, and like we could speak about stuff that, you know, obviously girls want to speak to girls about, and that was really special. And one of my really good friends, Demi, like we both started kickboxing together, and then both made a transition together in boxing, and both of us, like, we went to Sweden together in Golden Girls, and like it was just nice to have that like relationship with her, in terms of like we were so relaxed around each other, and we could literally talk about anything, and like we knew each other really well, and like just giving her a look, she knew like if I was really pissed off or not. But she can give me a look, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, I need to go to have a quick chat with her. And it was just really nice to meet those kind of groups of people. And yeah, I think it done a lot for me. I think not just confidence, but I felt a lot more protected. Like just to know that I can throw a punch, you know, that made me feel confident going out. And I think especially as a, you know, a petite woman, it made me feel confident being out and about, even if I wasn't out on my own. Just knowing that I can throw a punch.
And it also humbles you as well.
Oh, I've gone massively.
Like, you know, you see most people that like to get in fights when they go out. None of them fight.
No.
So, like, you know, when you actually see people that are in the gym training, they know full well, even though they can throw a punch, they know just how good so many other people are, and how many levels there are, that you're very humbled. You're very respectful. Yeah.
100%, like I'm definitely humbled. Not that I was never an arrogant person, but I think there was an element of humbleness that I didn't know about until I started boxing. But also it did give me this weird thing that I still do to this day, where I size people up.
I'll do that.
Can I take them on?
I'll do that.
What combination should I? You know, what combination would take them out?
I'll do that. I remember when I'm working all the time, and I see people like 6'4", like big guys. I'm like, right, I'll do this to him. I'll do that to him.
Right, I'll just keep jabbing and moving.
Keep jabbing it. I'll wait till he gets tired, and then I bang, get him with that. Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of thing you do.
Oh my god, yeah. And I'm like, right, like he's like 5'6", so if I run circles around him for like 3 minutes and gas him out, you know, one.
What do you do against me and Ash? Start with Ash.
I'm not going to tell you now.
Come on, tell me so I know. I know what to be careful of.
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my car key and I'm off.
Have you got any space in there?
Give away my game plan.
Yeah.
What got you into boxing?
I think it was wanting to make that transition when I was at uni, really. That was the main thing. And I think I was looking for something just really new. Again, I hadn't picked up a pair of gloves or anything. And yeah, that's why I approached. And Gym 01 was like a really friendly place, because I think boxing gyms can be intimidating if you've never been to them. But going to Gym 01, yeah, because once I started boxing, I was traveling around different gyms a lot, and I just realised how good Gym 01 still is. And like I would always go back to there, like if I want sparring or if I want to just go train, if I can, I'll get myself down to Gym 01. But yeah, it really made me realise, again, as a woman, it was a safe place for me to be. Both like Gareth and Brian, the owners of the gym, were just super friendly, and like just always like were really reassuring about, you know, if there was something up, they'll listen, and then they'll take it on, and they'll like if there was an issue, they'll resolve it. And there wasn't like, you know, I didn't feel uncomfortable with them. Like I felt like I could tell them anything, and it wouldn't be like a personal thing with them. They'll just like deal with it and like sort any problems out. And again, I find that that's just quite rare. And I think for them, you know, it's their business, and they take really like special care of people. Again, that's quite rare to find. So it's a real special place. I've got like a lot of time for Gym 01. Of course, my partner trained out of there. So there's the history of that, and the fact that we both have like a history with Gym 01.
So your partner was a pro MMA fighter?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and so I used to see him every now and then. Like, he used to, like, because as I started boxing, he'd just finished his MMA career, to then open up what's now our gym that we run together.
What's your gym then?
Move Training Centre.
That's based in Southampton, right?
Yeah. So we run that together. We've been running it together for the last 6 years, and it's based on calisthenics training, so bodyweight training. But so before Owen started there, he was kind of wrapping up his pro career at Gym 01, but he would still come in and like do some sparring with people. And at that time, I was working on reception. So again, I always say Brian and Gareth really helped me out at uni, and I was working at Gym 01 at reception, and I used to see like Owen come in every now and then. I'll be like, who's that guy? Like, he's so hot. And then I'll be like, oh, he's looking at me. I'm gonna look away. But yeah, and it was weird because like behind the reception when I was working there at the time, they had like all the Shock and Awe DVDs, and Owen's face was like on 4 of them, and like it's just weird to think like I was cleaning these like DVD covers with his face on it, so I was always looking at him. And to me, like when I like retrospectively look at it, I'm like, oh my god, he was always there. I was always looking at him, and then now, like, obviously, like we're together. So yeah, it's just like
Gimmo one really sorted you out.
They really did. They genuinely really did. And I remember like when me and Owen went down to the train, Gareth was like, "What's going on here? Owen, you leave us for a year and you come back with one of our boxes." And then obviously we spoke to Gareth, and I was like, yeah. So we both actually ended up living in Southampton at the same time. And I was looking for a coach in Southampton to do some pad work to get ready for nationals, and that's how I reached out to Owen. I was like, I realised you were at GMO1, and I'm looking for a coach in Southampton, and then we met up, and literally sparred on the first time we met, and he nearly knocked me out. So
what a lovely guy.
Yeah, he's really trying to make an impression on you, isn't he?
Yeah.
No, he was like, when he added him, he was like, we don't need to spar, and I was like, no, go on, tell him you want to spar, so you seem really hard, and then I was like, yeah, let's spar, come on. And he was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like round 2, he catches me with the most beautiful right hand, and I was like, oh my god. And you know when you start seeing stars? Yeah. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, let's keep going. And he was like, no, let's just sit down for a second. And then we sat down, and like 4 hours later, we were like chatting about life, and it was the most like organic way of meeting someone. And I'm like, right,
you're getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
The most organic way of meeting someone.
I was like, great.
You can only get better from there, really, can't it? Yeah.
And I was like, you've already seen me bleed. You've seen me really sweaty. So anything from here onwards should be nicer. And yeah, it was just a really organic way of meeting someone. And again, it was just like through boxing. And like again, I always say boxing has done so much for me. But to know that like you can even find love in it, it's just really amazing as well. Again, it brings it back to that like raw nature of boxing, that it can do a lot for people.
But yeah, also you guys are both very disciplined. You got a lot of drive. I think you've got so much in common.
Yeah.
That, like obviously, it doesn't do like ultra marathon running or.
Yeah, so we did like some ultras together.
Well, how far is an ultra marathon?
So it's anything above like 45k. There was a race that Owen done that was 145 across Snowdonia.
145k?
Yeah, and it was like across Snowdon, so Snowdonia National Park. Yeah. And then I basically I paced him. Like he hadn't done like an ultra before, and I was like, right, I'll pace you for it. Where I would like basically jump in like in the long legs with him of the race, and then I'll jump off quickly for like maybe 10k. I'll prepare food, and then I'll jump back in again with the food. And then jump back out, and like maybe if he needs something like extra water, and then grab it and then meet him back en route.
What does he have to do for the race then? What does he eat and drink whilst he's running?
It was like, because it was like such like maybe if it was an 80k one, you wouldn't necessarily need like food. You'd probably just get off on
gels.
Just use gels or like maybe sweets. Because it was like 145. Sandwiches like was the go-to thing really of making sandwiches.
Got ham butter, your mile
literally,
60.
Yeah, and it was honestly like when you reach that kind of like certain phase within those races, I remember looking at like I think I'd made like a Biscoff sandwich, and I was like, this is the best thing in the world right now. And I remember eating and being like, oh, and like in the middle of the mountains, and the sun was just coming up, and I was like, oh, this is nice. Knowing like we still had 30k to go until like
That's nuts.
Like,
yeah.
How does it just sounds crazy. I can't fathom that how someone can do that. 145 like
yeah, it was.
What time did he do it?
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long did it take him to do that?
Off the top of my head I have no idea, but he placed like top 10, and for him to like, a lot of people dropped out of that race. I think that was one of the hardest races they do. Wow. And I can see why people do drop out.
Is it like 24 hours people got to do it? Is it one
I think
of those?
you have like a 3-day cut off. So
3-day cut
yeah,
off.
you can take your time and literally walk the thing. But obviously a lot of people do run it. But towards the end, and obviously where me and Owen hadn't done it like at that kind of distance before, Owen's feet were just messed up, like massively messed up, swollen. So he was just walking really fast on his like walking sticks, and I was just a little bit in front of him, just so I was pacing him. But like sleep deprivation was crazy. Like not sleeping for like 2.5 days and just running in the mountains. The stuff you start seeing, it's like your mind just plays tricks on you, and like especially when you're tired. But it's also being like sleep dep is just in that whole nother level, like of hallucinations. Just I remember we were running, and I think we had like maybe 10k left until the finish line, and I was just constantly like 10k left, 10k left, and every k I'll be like 9k left, 8k left, and I'll tell Owen like right 9k left, 8k left, you know, and then like in my head every k I had like a food prepared, and I was like right. In 2k time I can have my sandwich. In 3k time I can have these chocolate. And that's what I kept like doing in my not for the whole like race. I was run out of food, but towards that end, that last leg, that was really hard. But I was battling with hallucinations. We went past this bit where there was like loads of double-decker buses, and I was convinced it was a dragon. I was like, oh my god, there's a dragon. Oh my god, there's a dragon following me. And then I'll be like, oh, there's a dragon. And he'd be like, what? And I was like, there's a dragon here. And then now looking back on it, it was really funny. Like it was a really funny thing to go through, but at the time.
But putting your body through that as well.
What was your mind through that as well?
What was the recovery like?
Yeah, it took
Still recovering from it, aren't you?
Can you imagine? Yeah.
You said you saw dragons on the way in.
Mentally, haven't recovered yet. Yeah, I think it took Owen a lot longer because, of course, he did the whole 145, whereas I could jump off and off the course. But like our feet were both like ruined. I think after like maybe I took off about like maybe 2-3 days, and then I started like cycling a little bit. Owen took off a good 2 weeks, and rightly so, because like his body was ruined. But I didn't want to just sit still for too long. I was like, I want to try and recover in the best way possible. But yeah, it was really good. It was a really good learning experience, and I think it would, if like couples were to do it, it'd either make or break them. And it was a really interesting test. But yeah, I would do it again. I've really enjoyed it. Really in a weird way now looking back at it. I did.
Have you got any planned this year?
No, nothing this year. No. I think more so because I think a lot of companies are only just putting the races out because of COVID. But that was a winter like race. I'm gonna do a summer race where I don't have to like be on like the brink of dying because of the cold. So I wouldn't mind doing like an ultra in the summer, just so you know it's just nice and warm. It makes such a huge difference.
Do you run normal marathons?
Not really, no.
Have you ever done a normal marathon?
No, I haven't. No, I just jumped straight deep end. I've never run a marathon actually.
So what type of training did you do for that? Something like that?
We should have done far more training. We were just like, I just sign up to it and do it. But we should, like I did it. I trained for it the following year. It didn't quite go to plan the following year. But I did like 3 months of like long runs and conditioning like for running. But
just
I was
progressive overload. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and then taking like a deload week and then going back on it again. But yeah, it was like I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed like the element of being out in the mountains, and that's why like with marathons.
Thanks to Iran as well, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and I always say like I do truly like I love being in the mountains because it reminds me of my childhood, and like my dad and my mum took us to the mountains like when we were children as well. So I love being in the mountains. But yeah, I think if I was to do a marathon, it would have to be in the mountains. Like, I don't think I'd enjoy the element of like a road marathon unless it's somewhere like really like just if it has like nature around it. I'll do it then. But otherwise, I'd want to do a marathon in the mountains.
When I did the Brighton Marathon, the last few miles, you're just looking at there's like a power plant there.
Yeah.
It's a big concrete thing, and you're just sort of running at it for what feels like days. You're just like, nothing's moving. It's like you're on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And it's just like, when are we going to get here?
Yeah, I can imagine.
What type of training did you do for your marathon? Did you do trial or did you go straight into it?
I did like 3 runs before.
Long ones or quite like a mile runs?
I did like a 10k.
Okay.
A 15k, and then I think I finished. I did a 5 miler, a 10 miler, and I finished on a 20 miler.
Oh,
okay.
But the day before was my dad's 50th, so I was drinking Guinness and.
Oh no! I think
you do that quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah.
Big occasions.
Yeah, it was a nightmare because going into it, like I knew it would be tough and everything, but obviously with boxing fitness, it's weird how explosive power helps you in endurance.
Yeah.
What do you think?
100%. Like because also I was quite a chubby kid. So like I could always go for days, but never very fast. And then when I focused on the intense side of work, when I was doing endurance stuff like ultra marathon, I can sort of just switch off and run for hours. So the only problem is you run out of music. It can get quite boring. That's why you said running in the mountains, you know.
Yeah.
It's probably beautiful, but if you're just road running or you're on a treadmill for 3 hours, you know, it's for me that's so boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'd love to do an ultra marathon. I think I'm guessing for you to test your mind and like, you know, like just to push those boundaries, like David Goggins style. It's
man.
It's cool.
I want to try half a marathon before I try anything like that.
You do it. Why not?
I've told Ash on my list this year is half marathon. Maybe a marathon if I
I think you can do it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, man. So we'll see how it gets on. But going back to your boxing sort of record.
Yeah.
So did you get how many belts did you have? Did you compete for, or how long did you box for?
Yeah, so I boxed from 2014 to like the first month of 2016, and I had overall 16 bouts
in those 2 seasons.
Yeah. So I managed to fit in quite a lot of fights within a short period of time. And then of course I started my PhD, and then I had to kind of cut back on boxing and competing.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot to do all at once. But I enjoyed it.
That's quite interesting because we did our sports management together.
Yes.
No, you did your sports psychology.
I did sports psychology.
I did sports management. You did it. Were you boxing during that period, or did you?
I was, but I was kind of phasing out of it at that point. I think I knew I wasn't going to take on too many fights. I think I gave nationals another shot and maybe had another fight afterwards. And then we got a puppy as well. And then so I got Bruce Lee and Mike Tyson. Shout out to my husky puppies.
What they call Bruce Lee and Mike Tyson?
Yeah, two Siberian Huskies. Absolutely, yeah, love them my lives. And yeah, so when we first got Bruce Lee, it was at the I think 3 months into my masters, and I was like, this is really full on. Like having a puppy, having the gym, working, and then doing my masters, and then all the training for boxing. So I was like, I knew I only had like a few more fights before I had to just like stick to doing a master's and then doing a PhD.
But what was your master's research in, or your dissertation? Yeah,
so for my master's, I was looking at the challenges of women boxers and then the strategies they use to overcome those challenges. And it was really interesting. So I looked at the challenges they experienced like as a novice boxer, so coming into it, and then as like going through that developmental phase of boxing, and then kind of the challenges at the elite level. So it was essentially broken into these 3 time periods, and it was really interesting because the
challenges were they?
So in the novices, it was basically like coming into boxing and getting sparring for them. But this is so the people I mean, for confidentiality, I can't say who they were, but some of them had competed for like GB, and they were like part of one of the first like group of women to compete for GB in 2012, or at least the lead up to it. And they were just saying, when they first started, which would have dated back to like maybe some of them 2007 or 6, they were saying, that going into and not seeing another female was like a really big thing for them, and it was alienating. Some of them said they experienced a lot of like sexist, remarks. Some of them said they experienced sexism, racism. Some of them said, it was like homophobic comments towards them, and that was like the initial kind of, I guess, shock to the system for them. And then they were obviously they're stuck by it. And they said when they went into developmental kind of phase, it was not just the sparring now. So they were struggling to get sparring, but also like they said there was a common ground for a lot of women boxers where they weren't getting taken seriously, and they were like,
on the coach's behalf.
Yeah, and they were like, they said, they would turn up and they would do the same training as the guys, but for some reason they still wouldn't get taken seriously, and like there were comments thrown around about them not taking it seriously, and they were like, they made a massive point about the fact that they were constantly having to prove themselves, whereas the guys didn't have to necessarily go through the fact that, you have to constantly prove yourself and get ignored constantly until like you've shown that you're going to keep turning up. And we spoke about that, yes, there has to be a level of self-discipline and persistence for any boxer, because it's such an important sport, but also it's a sport that you risk so much going into a ring or even sparring. But they were saying it was the lack of like acknowledgement that they're there and they want to be sparring, they want to be getting into those rounds where they have to really push themselves. So that was that was interesting to hear. And then in the elite phases, they were saying there was like a lot of expectations put on women that were like, they were expected to meet the same like benchmarks as men, but without the acknowledgement that physiologically there's going to be differences between men and women and because of their genetic makeup. And then they said, you know, speaking about the menstrual cycle was like a no-go basically, even though, you know, our menstrual cycle affects women's performances a lot. And I'm doing like, I went up to the Institute of Sport up in Sheffield, and I gave a talk to all the current GB coaches. That was really interesting. You know, I spoke to them about menstrual cycle, and actually if you train around your menstrual cycle and utilize it in terms of the hormone functions, you can actually train really optimally and use the hormones and the menstrual cycle to a woman's advantage.
Could you say, for any females that are listening, could you try and say what you told the team?
Yeah, of course. So it was basically broken down into the different phases of their menstrual cycle, and basically almost like the do's and the don'ts. And Owen, he done like the strength and conditioning side of it, and I covered like the psychological part of it, but also like things for coach to be aware of. So for example, there are certain phases in your menstrual cycle where a woman shouldn't necessarily train things that are going to agitate or put a lot of pressure on their, for example, on elastication in their body. So ACL being a huge factor in that. And you know, there's been studies done where it's basically found that during a certain period of your menstrual cycle, females were more likely to get ACL injuries because of being in that phase, and where the hormone that makes your joints more elasticated, not your joints, the connective tissue more elasticated, are more prone to getting injuries within the ACL because of the phase of the menstrual cycle and because of the hormone production.
And what phase of the menstrual cycle was that?
So this is basically the phase, it's the period, I think it's 20 to 10 days before your menstrual cycle, just before you come on basically, where there's production of hormones.
So for that 10 to 20 days, you're more at risk?
Yeah, for women, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the phase it is. Obviously, I'm going to check my notes, but I don't have notes with me. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the phase. And it was just, you know, and then there's certain periods where, so the first couple of days of your menstrual cycle, you could more likely hit like personal bests within strength programs, even within running programs, like short, fast, kind of like sprint, again, because of hormone production. It is, of course, it comes down to the individual, like how the individual feels. If you feel like you're bloated and like you feel a bit deflated, and of course, you know, you don't want to train. And again, those are, you know, I was saying to the coaches, those are some common symptoms that women do experience on the first couple of days, or even like just after, like that kind of midpoint of their menstrual cycle, where they will feel deflated because of certain hormones kind of reducing. And just to be mindful of that. And, you know, if the woman is making weight, they're going to carry a lot of water retention. You know, they can carry up to 2 kilograms of water retention when they come on their menstrual cycle just before, and they get very bloated. And, you know, if you're fighting, say, at 50 kg, you're suddenly 52. You know, you need to take those things into consideration, and that would differ, you know, with women. And we were saying, like, let your boxers know, for example, during that phase, try and avoid, like, really salty food, just because of, you know, the absorption. And yeah, for them it was really interesting. I think at first there was 2 female coaches and the rest were guys, and I think there was about 12 coaches there. At first I think people were a bit hesitant and maybe uncomfortable with the men, not the women. But towards the end they were asking so many questions. They were so open to like just talking about, you know, saying period and saying menstrual cycle and saying bleeding, because it is absolutely a natural process that women go through, and like none of us would be here if, you know, if our mothers hadn't gone through the menstrual cycle, and that's a known fact. And it's just, you know, removing the stigma, talking about it from a logical perspective, and also from a perspective where we can help the boxers really, you know, become optimal in their training.
Did you experience difficulties when you were boxing, from like coaching and like making weight and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky to have like Wayne and then Connor, so James Connor, two really understanding, knowledgeable coaches. I think my like struggles or things I saw were probably from like, again, other coaches. So like when we were at competitions, I remember there was a competition that I was at, and it was like a boxing cup, and we'd gone out just to get food, and it was quite late at night, and I saw one of the judges, and he was hammered. And he was still wearing his his boxing suit.
Was this on the way to the event?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but, seen the way some of them judge.
Yeah, I know. Oh my god. This was afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, yeah. Are you one of Are you one of the boxers?" And I was like,
That's a great drunk expression, by the way.
Oh, was it? Boxers. And he started chatting to me like I think he was going to burger, and I was just getting some chips, and he was like, I don't think you should be boxing really. And I was like, all right, okay. And he was like, yeah, I don't think women should be boxing. I wouldn't mind my daughter or my grandkids in there. No, definitely not. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a judge saying that to me. And he's like, yeah, I don't think, it's not really your place to be here. And I was like, oh, you're hammered, one. And two, you're a judge. For you to be saying that and to know that you could be judging my fight tomorrow, I don't want to hear that. It's and plus, I'm like, who are you to tell me I don't belong in somewhere?
Who'd you complain to? And did you do that thing where you line people up? And what should I hit him with, the 1-2, or did you do that thing with him?
There was at least 30 punches in there. It was like a Tekken game.
This guy was massive as well.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was this 6-foot guy, quite wide, and I was just like, you know what, I'm not here for this. I just got my food.
Did you ever get his name or anything? Or?
No. I think I was so tired that day as well.
I would have shamed that guy.
Yeah, I would have been good. I could have shamed him right now, but yeah, never mind. It was just hearing those kind of little sniggering comments, and I was just a bit like, ugh, not here for this.
What year was that?
What's that?
What year was that?
That was
roughly?
2014.
And then, first year in boxing.
Yeah, so there was another there was a boxing show that so there was Helen there. And Helen she took me for pads and she was cornering my fight. And this fight was in Maidstone. So Luke said that he watched me at this fight. It was a Gurkha show, actually. It was an amazing boxing show.
Luke loves his boxing, doesn't he? He gets around that area, doesn't he? Yeah, it's your club.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Who did you box?
It was, it was like a girl. I can't remember her name, but yeah, she was good. She was game. She actually handed me my first loss, but rightly so. She was really good. I think she was this was my second fight, and she had 7 fights. But I did say to Wayne, I was like, I want a hard fight, because...
That's another problem in women's boxing too, right? With the experience gaps. And
I think with my first fight, I won it by TKO in the first round. And I was like, oh, I wanted to get tested. And Wayne was like, right, literally put me right in the deep end. But then the fights that followed afterwards were all TKOs again. So it taught me a good lesson from my second fight. Mm-hmm. And then,
what do you think that is as well? Do you reckon it's your mentality, or do you reckon you train harder than these girls? What stood you out from?
Yeah, I think I know I train hard. Even to this day, I know I train really hard. But I think as soon as it gets tough, I don't back away from it and shy away from it. I want more, if anything. And I think sometimes when things get hard, people, whether you're anyone, a man or a woman, you could potentially just shy away from it, and just ride it out until the bell goes. But for me, I was just no, this is my 2 minutes or now when it was 3 minutes actually towards the end of my boxing career. I was 3 minutes where I can just go all out. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does, it does. Great.
It's quite interesting because people would have to train to be that way. But we as humans are taught to obviously try and stay away from that danger zone, aren't we?
Yeah.
Trying to be in that safe area when we feel we're in danger, we try and run away from it or go in our shell or something. But you've actually trained your brain to actually go towards that.
Yeah. I think there's an element of it that is, for us, I think it is beneficial, and I think knowing when dipping out of it is really important, because you can't be in a heightened state all the time. It just would be really unhealthy. But I think knowing when to go into and to come out, basically just I see it as a way of it's having a toolbox and knowing when to tap into and when not to. And I think that's a really crucial element of, I think, also, being my background in psychology, I think that's been a massive benefit. But also I think just my mentality, even before that, just, I think watching my mum and dad come through hardship and going through it myself, you kind of come out on the other end and you just think, this mentality can actually be used in different areas of my life.
I have seen that in your fights. They're always exciting. There's the punch output's huge, and obviously you just don't back down. I've seen, I think, maybe four of your fights, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's always exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't really step back.
Yeah.
you don't see that a lot of boxers, like Terry said, you know, you might just have a high guard, try and think of a way to ride out a round, but you're the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, and I think Conor always said, I was always more of a fighter than I was a boxer, and that is still true. Like, I'm always up for like a fight when I get in there. It was the boxing that I found harder, if anything, you know, know when to step back from going toe to toe with someone, know when to like use my defense, and then know when to pick it up. Because for me, I was just like, you know, we always joked about me being a Terminator, and it was well, go all out, or you just don't get in there. And it was, you know, finding like myself within that, you know, knowing when to again dip in and out of like that kind of controlled aggression.
So it's quite interesting, but obviously that element of it, fighting, is something that comes natural. I think boxing is something you can teach. You can teach someone to be a boxer, but a fighter is something that's in you. You talk about your mentality though, going back to it, to get to that stage where you would push on and other people would sort of run away from it.
Yeah.
What is it you mentioned about your dad and your mum, the hardships they went through? Is that what pushed you? Is that what you think of when you're going past that stage, or do you have certain skills or certain mindset to go there?
I think, you know, for me, I wouldn't say that's necessarily like what I go to when I'm in there. I think that's the foundation of my mentality, and that's what's helped it. But I think like my go-to thing really is I train really hard, like to the point where sometimes I feel sick and I'm just like, I don't, like, sometimes I get nervous about like going to the tracks because I know how hard it's going to be. And for me, I'm just like, I've done all those sessions for a reason, so, you know, I can perform really well here.
That gives you the confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And then I know, because I try and literally train my heart out, and I'm knowing that, okay, you've done this, you've done the hard work, now it's time to like use that hard work. But also, like, I have this like weird tactic in my head that I use, and shouldn't explain it.
Yeah, go on.
Basically, like, I imagine, so obviously I love my dogs. I adore them. I adore them so much. And I'm like, imagine that person here really wants to hurt your dogs. And that's it. I will just see red. Just if I just put that in my head.
It's good that you found your switch.
Yeah, that is like, I'm like, your dogs are watching you. Right, I need to impress them. Like, show them, you know, that their mum's really, you know, powerful. And it works, because sometimes, like, if I'm doing like my heel work, and if Owen's not training, he'll bring the dogs with him, and I'm like standing at the top of the hill, and I'm like, I run so much faster knowing if they're there. And I know what it is. I adore them dogs, and like my dogs have been through really hard times with like Mike Tyson. He's got epilepsy.
Not the real Mike Tyson.
Not the real Mike Tyson. My Mike Tyson, my husky Tyson. So he's got epilepsy, and like he's like an actual born fighter, and that's why his name's so suited. And Bruce Lee, like, growing up, he got attacked by, like, when he was a puppy, he got attacked by quite larger dogs. Again, like, in my head, I'm like, my little dogs have gone through hardship, and now look at them, they're, like, glorious little beings. So, I don't know.
How big are they?
Quite big. Like, if they stand up, I'm, like, 5'2", and they're, like, their head's just slightly above mine. If they stand up.
Can they stand up quite easily as well? Then?
Oh, yeah. They can jump up on people easily. Not that they're well behaved, but if I wanted to, like, jump up, they'll jump. But yeah, I don't know, I cherish my dogs. And my dogs have done a lot, like, they've brought a lot of love in the family during really hard times. So I cherish them, I love them, and it just reminds me of, like, my dogs remind me of, like, the life I have, and I cherish my life a lot. I'm really grateful for a lot of things I have in life. And that is what, again, another motivator is that I feel privileged to be able to have a body that I can train, and to have the freedom of training. And I think for me, a lot of my motivation goes back to that as well, of being grateful for, like, just having a body that breathes on its own, and having the freedom to be able to do that.
And when you are training, so obviously you said about peaking, like with your menstrual cycle, etc. How would you optimize that in your training? What did your training look like when you got to the elites, when you're fighting like 3-3s?
I think for me then, and it was really good because I had the help of, like, in terms of strength and condition, and Owen's like he's been doing it for 15 years now, so he's really knowledgeable around that area, and it was having his input in it. But also in terms of, like, weight management, we were cautious of how much water I was drinking when I was coming towards, like, the start of my menstrual cycle, because the water retention was naturally high.
So you'd have to cut water even when you trained?
Yeah, so I wouldn't cut it, but it would just, like, a little bit less than what I would usually have. I'm not a massive, like, I don't drink water much, which is probably a huge problem on its own. But we were just cautious of that, and also like cutting out salt towards the start of my menstrual cycle, and then no sparring during like the first couple of days, because of course I wouldn't want like around my ovaries taking any hits, and then maybe like after day 3 or 4 going back into sparring, and yeah, so we really utilised my menstrual cycle, you know, and use it to, like, I would say, definitely to my benefit. And I would definitely encourage like coaches or people that work with boxers or like women athletes to actually look out there and look at apps that offer that, because, you know, there's plenty of apps now that you can look at to try and track your menstrual cycle.
Can you name any?
No, God, no, on the top of my head, no.
Just Google it.
Yeah, no, there is. I think that there is predominantly 2, and I know there is Dr. Emma Ross, who's doing some great work on it as well. So she done what was it called? I've forgotten the name of it, but it's always like the tip of my tongue, but when I need it, it's not there. She done a really great campaign with the English Institute of Sport, and that was kind of, it's called the Smarter Her campaign, and it basically talks about your menstrual cycle and why it's so important. And I would go to the Smarter Her campaign and look at the apps they recommend, because that's the apps that would help you track efficiently and also use it for training as well. And that was trialled, I think, with the women's Olympic hockey team, and they really, really enjoyed it. And then the Smarter Her campaign then kind of pushed out to other sports.
Okay, how do you reckon women's sport can be improved now, especially within boxing? We're in 2022 now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know you're doing research on your PhD in like development and psychology in rugby now.
Yeah, women's rugby. Yeah, that's right.
Do you still keep in contact with boxing? Are you still quite involved in the sport?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. So I was just saying to Ash today that I've just linked up with a professor from Western University, and who's a sport historian, and it's been really interesting kind of getting his perspective from like a history perspective of how women's boxing has evolved. He's a massive loves, he boxes himself, loves boxing, and I want to definitely do more work with him. I think once my PhD comes to an end, I want to really focus on women's boxing in terms of not only its development, but in terms of looking at mental health, literacy. So that's kind of where I'm specialising in at the moment in my PhD. And I think there's a lot of work that still needs doing in women's boxing, whether that's amateurs or in the pro ranks. I think there's a lot of room for development, there's a lot of room for management, there's a lot of room for making it inclusive. I think essentially it goes back to funding. I think women's boxing needs to be in amateurs be better funded, and I think women boxers need to have equal access to resources the same as their male counterparts.
I think at GB level they certainly do. England level,
yes,
they probably do, right?
Who's that? Sorry,
Team GB.
Team GB. Yeah. They've actually dropped a weight in the men's, so they can add another women's Olympic sport. So it's slowly. I think that transitions up, but it's a slow process, isn't it? Because men's boxing's dominated it since the start of the Olympics. Yes, it's going to take time, but it's good thing is athletes, as we said earlier, Katie Taylor, Nicola Adams, they slowly change it. They've helped change the culture of that.
So as a sports psychologist, what advice can you give people to be better on competition day, whether it's a fight or a triathlon? Or...
Yeah, I think one thing I do always say is that I think approaches have to be tailored to the person. I think one thing in psychology is that, this one-size-fits approach just doesn't work. I think essentially it comes down to being prepared, not just physically but mentally as well. I think, if you come into a race day or a boxing event, prepare yourself for what's to come. So prepare for every outcome as well. So in boxing, you have certain different outcomes, so you can either win a fight. So visualize how that would look. Visualize yourself even, if it doesn't go your way. Visualize that so you're prepared for that outcome if it comes to it, so that element of shock is lessened to a certain extent. Prepare yourself for a draw, prepare yourself for knocking someone out, but also prepare yourself for getting knocked out. There's only so much you can do to prepare yourself for getting knocked out, but acknowledge the fact that it's a possibility, but without giving it energy that, oh my God, is that going to happen? Is this going to happen?
Yeah, I think touching upon that, I think me mentally, towards the beginning sort of part of my career, I was really focused on, what happens if I lose?
Yeah.
That negative took over, and that's what would happen in the fight.
Yeah.
Because even though I was winning, the negative element in my mind was like, you need to just calm down, you need to slow down. So I would hit back against that a little bit. I think visualize winning.
Yeah.
Visualize knocking out your opponent instead of visualizing you losing, because that can actually go against you.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think again it goes back to that element of being prepared. I think it's being prepared for every outcome, but whatever outcome you want it to be. So in boxing, it should be that you're going to win. And some people have a certain way they want to win. I'm going to win in style. I'm going to knock this person out. All right, if that's what you want to do, then visualize how you're going to do it, because there's research out there that's proven why visualization, you're more likely to achieve something. Visualize, don't just visualize you knocking someone out, but visualize how you're actually going to do it. What punches are you going to throw? What punches are you going to miss? How your footwork, how is your footwork going to get you to the punches that you're visualizing? So literally visualize every single step of how you're going to get to that goal. If it is knocking someone out, if it is outpointing someone, visualize how you're going to do it. Visualize how you're going to step in and out. If it's a race, visualize yourself within the first K, within the second K, within the 10th K. But be prepared. You don't have to necessarily visualize it, but be prepared for other outcomes. So if anything else was to happen, that element of shock that it might hit you afterwards is a little bit less, it's a little bit softer, because there was an element of preparedness to what you were doing.
Because you see some people that they finally lose and they'll never be the same mentally. So I guess if you can understand it more, you're going to bounce back better.
Yeah, it's we were speaking about this concept of, when you really hit a low, it's acknowledging that you're at this low and then being able to pick yourself back up, whereas sometimes people just get stuck down there, and it is a place where we can just get stuck and not come out of it. And that's where that problem arises of, okay, when do I seek help? Do I seek help? Do I not seek help? And it's actually acknowledging that and sitting with that feeling of, okay, for example, taking the example of taking a loss. I've just lost this, this bout. It doesn't feel good. It's not what I wanted as a goal. I knew that this could have been an outcome, and it doesn't feel great. And that could be a process that might last an hour, it might last a day. But then it's acknowledging, actually, after this, now I need to come back up again to a more balanced state of, I don't have to be super happy, but I don't want to be down here.
Yeah,
turn it to a motivator.
That's true.
Yeah, for sure. And using that as a learning curve. And it sounds a bit cliche, but we do say in boxing, a loss isn't really a loss; it's a learning curve.
Win or learn.
It really is. You do learn from it. You learn so much from a loss. You learn a lot from a win. But I think with that emotional connection that people have with losing, you learn of picking yourself back up again and getting yourself back onto the road of, okay, onto the next one.
Yeah, appreciating those lows, to take those lows.
Yeah.
Your mindset from that low is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
I learned about this during one of the lowest times I had was towards the end of my career. I had a loss, and I was really low. And I was supposed to go into the ABAs that year, and I said to my coach, "I'm not doing it."
Yeah.
I said, I'm done. That really hit me hard.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm done. He said, "Fine, Terry, if you're done, go out of it. Think about it. You've got a few weeks until the championships. See if you want to do it." A week later, he gave me a call. I said, "I want you to meet this guy." I said, "All right, come down, just down the gym." Quite defeated. I'm still defeated from that loss. And the guy, he told me about. Have you heard about the chimp on your shoulder?
Yeah.
Chimp
About
brain.
that paradox. He taught me all about this, how to manage your chimp. Yeah, and instantly it changed my thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I went back into the gym and just turned into someone completely different.
You stop running off of emotions.
Yeah, and straight away everyone's like, you look completely different. And went in the championships and I won it.
Amazing.
The belt in that contest. So it shows you how much you need to control your emotions. Psychology plays massive part in it.
Yeah, for sure. And we were speaking about this earlier in the car, and we were saying on the way here, actually, I was just working on someone's performance profile for their kind of psychological profile for them coming up, competition they've got coming up in a couple of months. And it plays such a huge role in performance, in the way that you know, we prepare ourselves physically to the best shape we can be for a bout. But actually, how much mental preparation have you done? And it's not just, you know, it's not this element of, I'm just going to write my goals down and then I'm just going to visualize me winning. But actually, there's so much more to it, you know. What are your goals? Are they short term? Are they long term? How are you going to achieve them? And then looking at, okay, are your targets realistic actually? Are you going to achieve it in a certain amount of time? With your visualization, what are you visualizing? How are you visualizing it? What processes are you going through? And I do feel like sometimes these kind of words, buzzwords, gets chucked around, you know, let's goal set, motivate yourself. But it's actually like when you break it down, how are you measuring it? Is it tangible? Because if we can't measure something, then we can't see progression in a certain way, especially with the concept like psychology, where you can't actually see it, you know, physically. For example, you'd be able to see like, I've got a bit of muscle, I've lost a bit of muscle, I've done this, I've done that, you know, there's visual representations that we can see, but with psychological concepts, it's more difficult to see it. You know, people describe mental health as like it's invisible because we can't see it, as well as these psychological concepts in terms of performance. You know,
can sort of see it in people's actions, though.
Yeah,
I feel like it really rubs off.
Yeah, and that comes through practicing, you know, psychology within your training and really implementing like actual exercises, so that it starts to show itself in your actions. And I think. Yeah, I think boxers could definitely benefit from psychological interventions, and I think that there is a stigma attached with
that's weakness. There's a stigma attached.
Yeah, massively, and I think people attach this like psychological interventions in sport as a thing that you only engage in it when you're at your lowest point, or when you feel defeated, and it's like no, like you engage with it as you would engage with any kind of physical program. You want to engage with something, like for example, you know, we all know that mobility is really important and we'll stretch off and stuff to avoid injury. So this should be the same concept, you know, you involve yourself in psychological practices to avoid, you know, suddenly becoming defeated and having this mentality of like, I feel really low.
What practices would you recommend, like positive affirmations or
I think,
visualization?
That plays a role, but I think it's essentially, if it was down to me, I think athletes should, as they have a strength and conditioning personnel, as they have a physio, they should also be working with a psychologist, because that's when you can have your check-ins, that's when you can, you know, assess your goals, that's when you can make it tangible and assess your progression. I think, yes, there are certain things that you can implement, like as a starting point, you know, just setting short-term goals. I wouldn't even say necessarily setting really long-term goals, but start with short-term goals, see how that goes, see if that works for you, and then start setting long-term goals. And then seeing, you know, really break it down. How are you going to work to it every single day? What are you dedicating to those short-term goals every single day? Because then again, it goes back to a level of, you know, I've prepared myself for this and this and this, and this is what I'm going to do today to achieve this goal in a couple of weeks. And then for me then to achieve my goal down the line in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of things you can do, but I know that people really like goal setting, and it is a great example.
Yeah, I always felt like my confidence always come from my training.
Yeah.
Like as long as I didn't cut any corners and I had the sacrifice, I knew everything I was doing was right.
Yeah.
In my mind, I was always doing more than my opponent. I was always progressing every week. I was never doing the same thing. So like my training every single day, it was always bettering myself. And whenever I had a fight or whatever, I could really feel that. I felt confident in myself going into a fight because of everything I'd ever done.
Yeah.
I don't think of any doubts of what if I lose. I felt prepared with all of the hard work, all of the sprints on the beat, all those sessions that you can remember.
Yeah.
All the sparring sessions. Like I used to treat sparring as well, similar like visualization.
Yeah.
Like the fight days. I would try and eat what I would eat on a fight day. I would try and implement the same mindset. That way, when it come to fight day, the nerves that I had, I was ready to just enhance
absolutely,
them.
yeah, totally.
For me, it's completely different. I only learnt about the sports psychology towards the end of my
and
the last 3 fights. I learnt about it, and in my second fight, I didn't implement it. I thought, I don't need it now.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest mistake you can make, is if it helped you, you've got to keep using it in there.
Exactly, 100%. And I think even with our training, you know, once your body adheres to something and it gets used to it, you've got to switch it up to then shock the system. And it's the same, you know, once your mentality adheres to a certain behaviour, then, you know, you need to change certain techniques to then approach the next kind of phase of like, okay, actually in this area I'm lack confidence, for example. Okay, how can we address that? And that's where like a psychologist will come in and kind of work with you to try and figure out, okay, what is the next step of me wanting to improve X, Y, Z.
I think amateur coaches need to be able to be open to these as well, because we've got so much knowledge around sport now. So it's not just boxing. We need to focus on nutrition. We need to focus on psychology, strength and conditioning. And I think boxing, especially some of the old school coaches, they say just do your road work. Do your thing.
I think different though. I think coaches, if you've got 30 people, you can't manage all those things. I feel like boxers need to go out and seek for themselves what's best, trial and error. Like all of my weaknesses that I've had, like for example, my legs. I used to feel strong in my legs. But then I sort of only ever ran, and people think running's leg day, but it's not. In Australia, as soon as I started doing weights and strength conditioning, and I strengthened my legs and my back, as soon as I started focusing on all my weaknesses, I turned them into strengths. And I felt like no coach would ever point out my weaknesses, would ever do that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's the coaches say, just focus on your boxing. But then you need to be open-minded to say, no, I need different areas. Or coaches need to be said, go and seek help from different areas. So I think that's where
bigger team in the clubs. Imagine if every club had a coach, a sports psychologist.
Well, this is the thing. This is kind of what we're trying to push. And so with my PhD work in women's rugby, that's what we're trying to push. Is that every club should essentially have their own kind of dedicated team in terms of like their own expertise. So a nutritionist, a physio, a psychologist. And everyone holds that responsibility, because essentially we can't expect the coach to do everything. I think the coach has we need to consider their mental well-being as well, and how much pressure they're taking on. And a coach won't know necessarily everything about every concept of the human body. So it's actually and that's where that funding situation comes in. It's having that funding in place so we can have, and we don't just prioritize it for the men's games, for example. We prioritize it for both women's and men's games, so we provide everyone with an equal opportunity of being essentially optimal as they can be.
That's brilliant. Nice. And last question, obviously, so you was on SAS Who Dares Wins. We'll try and keep it short. Can you just explain, so for people listening, it was a big show on TV, they put you through what the SAS Marines would do.
I remember seeing you on that, turning on the TV, I was like, that can't be her. And then I heard the voice, I was like, oh my God.
So essentially SAS Who Dares Wins is a very condensed version of some of the elements of what you would have to go through in terms of training for the special forces, whether it's a special air, so you've got SAS, which is focused on air, and you've got SBS, which is the special boat services. So it was essentially just elements of it within like a 10-day period, and they take like basically civilians, and you apply for it, and then you get cut down from like 4,000, 5,000 applicants to like the last 30, and then from that 30 it's like the last 20.
Wow. To being on the show.
To then go on the show. So I went on there, I applied for it, I went on there, I had 2 weeks notice, so they told me 2 weeks out before flying out to Scotland that I was on it, and I was like, and given that everyone there were told like, so we flew out at the beginning of October, some people knew from August.
So they had time to train and prepare mentally.
But I think again with my boxing and running background, I was actually training for the nationals. At that moment, I was like, I'll go in and give it another shot. So I was actually training, and I was like looking to come back. I think I was walking about 49, 50 kg. And what I should have been doing really, if I was going to go on SAS Who Dares Wins, was put a better weight on, because it was so cold. And they told me 2 weeks out, and I was like, physically I was like, I've been training anyway, and like my lifestyle does include training anyway. It was more mentally, I was like, I need to mentally prepare myself, so I was having like stupidly long cold showers, sitting in like ice water, but mentally just trying to like prepare myself. I was going to bed really late and waking up with minimal sleep for function. So again, I think the element of sports psychology played a huge role, because I'd practiced there and I had a background in it. It really helped like when I actually got there, and it was a really, like, I would say, it changed a lot of things. I think about the way I see my limits. Like I realised that this concept of limits is a concept that we place on ourselves, and actually limits can be broken.
Like a mental barrier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, of course, that there's like I'm not going to be able to hold a 100 kg guy over my head because physically that's like almost impossible. But actually, I can try and pick them up and put them on my back. There's a lot of things that I can do that I didn't necessarily think I could. And that show, it really like opened doors in terms of the things that I realised I could do. Like I don't like being in the cold, full stop.
I was gonna say, how did the cold water? Because you had to
it was horrific.
Hand grips with everyone and go underwater.
Yeah,
is
go
that
underwater.
right?
Yeah, so you had like a full-on immersion underwater with waves coming to you, and this was like in Scotland in the middle of October with below freezing waters. And there is a lot, and I always say this: there's a lot of things that TV doesn't show you. There was a lot that people just didn't see behind the scenes. There's a lot, and it's not like people were like, oh, did you get to have a shower? And I was like, no, like what you see is literally what was happening. We weren't given any extra food. We had the 3 meals a day. That was it. We didn't have any showers. We couldn't get change apart from the clothes that we had on or our wet clothes. That was literally, and I think there was this misconception. I think people thought there was a lot more going on in the background when they didn't. I don't know, maybe because they have like a celebrity version, and I don't know.
They're probably in 5-star hotels at now.
Wouldn't surprise me, but their stuff definitely did look easier, like far easier than what we had to go through.
What was your toughest challenge?
I think for me, I would say the water stuff, and like I got hypothermia towards the end, and I couldn't feel anything. The cold, well, that was my biggest struggle, because no matter how much I tried, my body was just shutting down. And then even when to the point where I got hypothermia, I was just like, I tried to go, but I was like, my body just wasn't moving.
How did they look after you in that situation?
They had medics at hand everywhere. So when I think Anne recognised it really quick. Yeah, so I think my biggest barrier was just dealing with the cold, and just being cold 24/7. And I had this like weird habit where I wouldn't sleep on my bed. I would sleep on, I don't know why, but I felt more comfortable sleeping on the floor, so I would literally sleep like on my bergen behind my head, just like that, really straight like a mummy. And it was like a running joke between all of us. We were like, oh, there you go, Shaq, she's going to sleep on the floor again. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why I can't sleep on that bed. And it wasn't because it was far more comfortable in the bed, like logically it was more comfortable, but I don't know why, I just felt more at ease being on the ground. I don't know why.
It's good for you as well.
Was it a concrete ground?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that's why you were cold all the time. I would have been tucked up in bed with like a sleeping bag.
Well, apparently you only get like 1 or 2 hours sleep.
You don't get much sleep anyway, yeah. So like every time I got my head down, it was just, I tried the bed the first 2 nights, and I was like, I just couldn't. And I think it was because the pole that joins the bed, my pole just kept snapping out, so my neck was constantly like that, and I was like, well, it's either sleeping the other way, but I didn't like to sleep on the other way because then I couldn't see the door opening. And as soon as the door opens, you have to get up and go. So I thought if I'm on the floor, I'm gonna literally just need to tuck my shoulders onto my bag and run. And usually it was like the last one who gets out will usually get some sort of punishment. And it worked. Like it was way more efficient. And I was like, we're not gonna sleep anyway. Like every night we're getting waken up like after 2 hours, and also every night we had to go on a watch. Again, things they didn't show on TV. So I was like, I'm going to get woken up in an hour or two anyway to go on a night watch. So teasing yourself with the bed, getting all comfortable, is probably the worst thing. You finally get switched off, and then you'll come back to that stress. And that's exactly what I didn't want to do.
Lived in that stress.
Yeah, and I was like, that's exactly, that word teasing is like literally perfection there. And I never wanted to feel too comfortable because it was a false sense of comfort. And like even so from getting to a place, they would take us like in Land Rovers, and they'll put the heating on and stuff for us, and like people usually would nod off, and I would try so hard not to nod off, because I was like, me nodding off is me being comfortable to sleep. And then I was always just trying to stay as awake as possible, because I hate the shock of like snapping out of it. And I was like, as long as I'm uncomfortable, I'm fine, because I'm not used to the feeling of being comfortable. And then towards the end, so I got to the last day where I was in interrogation before they put me off, and I really enjoyed the interrogation in a really weird way, because in my head I was like, yes, we're in stress positions for hours, yes, I've got babies screaming in my ears, but I was like, in my head, I'm not in the water anymore. I'm not in the cold in the water where I feel cold. I was like, yes, I'm still cold here, because we still had all our wet clothing on. But I was like, I'm not in the water, so anywhere is better than the water.
So you were content just with obviously going through that high stress. Anything else was a win.
Yeah, and I was like, right, I'm stood here, and I was like, I don't know, I was like, I have time and space now to really zone out, and I would just zone out in these like, I think you get to a certain point. Again, I hadn't slept for like 2 days by the time we were getting interrogated, and I enjoyed it, and I think to a certain extent maybe it might have annoyed the producers, because at that point there were people like crying, moaning, and some people were just quiet and they were just like, yeah, whatever. And I was just chilling. I was like, I'm not in the water, and my mindset was like,
you found your own way. You found your own way to get through it, didn't you? Like mentally, you thought, I can't be any worse than this.
Yeah. I was just like, yeah, and I was like, look, I'm so close to the finish line now, and that was the massive motivator for me. I was like, get through this next phase, and then whatever comes after that is done.
How many days were you in there for?
So it was 9.5, so they took me off with less than 24 hours to go.
9.5. And how was the team sort of atmosphere in there? Was it quite
it was
collaborative
good.
team?
Yeah, it was like there was a really cohesive group of people. You know, we really got on. We helped each other out. I think we saw each other as the lowest of lowest points. And yeah, I think when the team just got stripped down and down and down in terms of the numbers dropping, you know, we really saw like people's characters come through, especially in really stressful situations. Again, it was really interesting to see like even how like I would react in certain situations, and it was good. Like I learned a lot again. Like there was a backwards dive they had to do like from a really high platform, and you had to like cross your hands and go backwards.
That was mad.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily a fan of heights, and then to go into water, I don't like water. I don't like the concept of water. Like I nearly drowned one time surfing. And just because my surfboard like wiped.
You did surfing over there as well?
No, in Scotland. No, so when I was at at secondary school or college, I did like surfing for a year, and just one time my surfboard like went under my foot from a wave, and then I went underwater, and then my surfboard came on top of me, and I couldn't get back up. And just from stuff like that, and I was just like, I don't like the cold, and then from the height, and then being backwards. But I think just seeing other people do it, and I was like, right, they're doing it, I'm going to do it, it's fine. And then I was just like, in my head, I kept reassuring myself that you can do it, you can do anything you want, you can do anything you want, you can do it. And then one good thing was like, Anne would come up to me and he'd be like, 3, 2, 1, and he had no choice but to go. He didn't have that time to think about it. It was like, you either go, or you're just going to stand there looking like you didn't do it. And I was like, I'm not going to do that.
How high was it as well?
Oh, I don't know, maybe like 50 meters or something. It was really high, because as soon as you fall back, it's such a hard impact, and almost like whiplash because of the water. But it's really empowering. I remember like as soon as I came back from the water, I was smiling, and like my friend came up with me, Kim, who I was really close with throughout the whole experience, and like we were both smiling at each other. Like that was so, you know, we can't believe we both done it. And we both sparred it and made us box each other as well, which I was like a bit annoyed because technically, because of a size difference, I should have sparred someone more closer to my weight. There was someone else who was so I was the smallest one. There was another girl who was just a little bit taller than me, and I should have sparred her. But I think they put me and Kim together because we really got on with each other. Okay. But even though Kim was really game for it, and I was like, we just got to do it. And it was really fun. Like I wasn't gonna go and like smash and like knock her out or anything. I'm not about that. But she was game, and I was game. That was
the rule of it, though, right?
Yeah, you had to go all out. But I knew that Kim would match my level. She would go all out, so we can go all out. But then at the end of it, Kim was like, "Mate, I knew you could knock me out, but you didn't." And I was like, "I'm not here for like glory. Yes, we were going to go all out, but I'm not going to physically knock you out. It's a TV show. I'm not going to knock you out. Like that's not what I don't want to do that, especially to someone that I've got to know in a relatively short space of time, and to know that."
Do you still keep in contact with her?
Yeah. She's over in America now. She's part of the Apple Fitness group. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, she's doing incredible, and really happy for her and her partner. And yeah, no, it was really good, and like, and we both said we're going to go hard. Like, and again, I'm really glad I met someone who was so similar in so many ways.
And how were you coming out of it? Did you feel like a completely different person?
Yeah, I came out, and like to be honest, I hit above a low, because I came out for 2 weeks. I couldn't sleep. I was really alert. I was so alert, like overly alert about everything. And then after that 2 weeks of like coming back to reality and like letting things settle in, and also I didn't like the way I exited. It was forced. I didn't have a choice in it, and I didn't agree with the way they took me off. It was really unethical. It was again on TV they made out like I had anxiety, in terms of like it was a long-term thing, and I didn't.
I remember your reaction to it as well.
Yeah, and there was a lot of things. There was a lot of miscommunication behind the scenes, from the way it was communicated to me. I thought in that precise moment in time that my dad had passed away, from the way that someone communicated something with me, and so I'm in this hysteric mode because I thought someone had said we're taking you off because it was related to my dad's death, and I was just like, what's going on? Has something happened I don't know about whilst I've been away?
Yeah.
And that just like mentally, that really messed with me. And there was a lot of miscommunication. And when I came out and I spoke to the psychologist, I was like, you have to put me back on, because what just happened wasn't right. And then they apologised, but they were like, the producers are not letting you back on. And then Foxy and Anne went over and spoke to the producers. The doctor went over and spoke to the producers, was like, yeah, she can go back on. We've cleared her, but producers were like adamant. It probably had something to do with me like swearing at them when I came off and being like, all of this is put on, you know who's going to win. I was like, you didn't want me to win.
Did you think it was fixed then?
I wouldn't say it was necessarily fix, but I think that by that point they had like people in mind.
Favourites and stuff, maybe that they're giving airtime.
And I think there were people that they were like, yeah, he'll pass it. So
you're TV friendly maybe, and
I think maybe someone that people can, like a lot of people can relate to, because I'm like, who's going to relate to a 5'2" Iranian girl? Like, not many people. Who's going to put themselves through this? Probably not many people that are watching the show.
But not that people relate to you. I think a lot of people probably admired you and probably wanted you to win for completely different reasons.
I think coming off it, there was so much love that I wasn't expecting, and I'm not going to lie, that really like overwhelmed me in a really amazing way. And I'm again always appreciative and I'm like grateful for that. And so just the amount of love was amazing. And I didn't know, because I was like, people are not going to relate to me as a person, but actually
they saw you on TV put yourself through such tough challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
That they admire you as a person.
And I didn't see that part of it at all. And again, it was really nice to come to so much love when I came out of it. There was like a few like really hateful comments. Like someone was like, "Oh, I want to shoot her in the head," and I was like, wow. Okay, cool. But for every like negative comment, there was like 20 positive comments.
You're always going to get those idiots.
Yeah, and I was like, I just stayed off. Like, I'm not a fan of social media anyway. But even at that period in time, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna not check anything. But I was like, it is what it is. But coming off it, like, I built a really great relationship with Foxy. Did like some brand ambassadorships for Foxy's and Ollie's brand Battle Ready 360, which was a really amazing opportunity getting to like work with them guys. And like Foxy had offered support from his charity Rock to Recovery, him and his friend's charity Rock to Recovery, and they helped with my dad with his PTSD. So my dad served in the Iran-Iraq war, and he was diagnosed with PTSD years ago, and something that of course he still has to deal with to this day. But through Rock to Recovery, he was really able to get some really specialised support from fellow veterans, and for him that was like life-changing. And yeah, I'm really like, I would forever be appreciative of that. And that came off, going on a TV show for 10 days and having Foxy support my dad in that way was just incredible. And like, I'm so thankful for that opportunity that arose.
Amazing.
Definitely credit to you for going on that show and having such a great reaction and represent yourself so well.
Thank you. I'll do it again if I could.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on as well.
Thank you very much, Shaq. That's been brilliant.
We'd love to get you on again and get some Q&As.
That'd be good.
With some listeners as well.
Yeah, I'll be up for that. Really up for that.
Guys, thank you very much everyone for listening. Shaq, if you want people to hook you up on Instagram, LinkedIn, have you got an Instagram page?
Twitter. I'm quite active on Twitter. Yeah. So it's literally the @ and then Shakiba Moghadam. If you literally look up Shakiba, I know
we'll put it.
Yeah, so if you guys link it up. But yeah, I'm quite active on Twitter. I post out quite a lot of my research I do with my PhD and kind of things I'm involved in. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Great. Check out Shaq. Guys, thank you very much all for listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.